it is time to bring in Jim Lynch. Jim Lynch, Cover Your Assets. Jim is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, sports, politics, gardening.
Haven't heard the gardening.
I don't know. I figure, he walks through gardens and he appreciates them, so he must be an expert. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in. Jim Lynch. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, and I just want to indicate I do have some creds in gardening.
There you go.
A fellow named Brother Andre taught me how to plant strawberries and tend to them. And then as a youth, I worked on a farm where I'd carry sacks of corn, which were about 100 pounds each. I was a beast in my day.
Well, it's funny because I lived on a chicken farm, Elm Valley Farm. I did at chicken farm, and I was such a delicate young child that I didn't do any. All I was assigned to do was to mow, but I had to mow a field that was about, I want to say, an acre and a half. Remember the old hand push mowers with the blades?
Yes, I do.
That's what I had to do because I wouldn't do anything else on the chicken farm.
If you had a riding mower, would you have ridden it?
Oh yeah, in a second. We finally, when I got old enough, we got a Toro. Thank God, a Toro mower, and I used that. But for years, it was the old double blades there, Jim.
Well, I don't want to be graphic, but I want to say this for your benefit, Marshall, because I know you'll probably remember. We had chickens, and we periodically had to.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I was one of those types that I was against hunting, and everybody was a hunter in my family, and I didn't like anything like that. And I was very, very young when the farm was really active, but I can still remember. What happened when the axe came down. Okay, I still have some nightmares.
Well,
about
when my brother started Earthbound, Gertrude, they decided that they should have some experience in actually doing some of this stuff. So I'm sure that's why they ended up in lettuce.
It's a marvelous experience. I treasure those days. As a child, it helped me get through some rougher spots. It makes you very healthy. Anyhow, we've had quite a run of things here of late, and I'd just like to start with a comment, my own personal comment, and then some other comments on John McCain. There's nothing like a life well lived, because after all, we do have only so much time. And John McCain, his life was well lived, and he certainly showed that in his last days as he gave us exampleship and hope, and the idea that Americans can do it and don't quit. Something which we all have espoused on this show from time to time. To me, McCain's passing, though I didn't agree with X amount of his policies, legislations, whatever, and some I was vehemently against, but I was always so full of admire and respect for him because of what he did in Vietnam, and certainly his many years of service. But an example from the Vietnam conflict was his amazing coming together with John Kerry, a Democrat, who history will show you basically was out with people protesting the war in Vietnam as it continued, but after he came out. And those two got it together and really helped in terms of nurturing some help in terms of getting our country and Vietnam a little bit better off after that war. This was McCain's way. He was very strong, stubborn, whatever, which is why it's great if you listen to any of these accolades that people throw in his humility and is willing to realize he made a mistake and admit it and go forward. But he also had this ability to make friends with everybody who was willing, be it on an international level or on a domestic level, and in the process not only got great respect, but was able to do a lot of very important things, which we expect from our representatives, our senators, and so forth. So
it's interesting you say that because, the picture that the media paints of John McCain now, most media is a very rosy picture, and John had his faults like everybody else. I mean, he called Ted Kennedy a jerk on the floor. As a matter of fact, he called lots of people jerk. It's a word he used to like to use. And I saw some people saying, well, he wasn't such a good guy. He used to call people jerks. And then I said to some people, wait a second, at work, have you ever said to a friend, stop acting like a jerk, don't be a jerk? I mean, that is a term that is used frequently. He had a hot temper, but he could admit his mistakes, like you were saying, Jim. And I'm with you, even though I was probably against 85% of what he would do legislatively, as a person and as a person who had commitment to this country, whether you liked him or not, the way he acted, he was a stand-up guy and almost like the last of the old guard.
And what I want to jump in and say right here is this: we need the old guard in the new guard, because what we've got now is, I'm not allowed to say the word on the radio, so I can say crap, right?
Right. Well, you're absolutely correct, but we do have this outstanding example in McCain in terms of the point that Marshall just made. Yes, he had as many faults, most of which he admitted, and in his personal life as well as his professional life. But so important to people as they go through life, he matured into a greater understanding and a greater, if you would, gracefulness. When, for instance, when he was running against Barack Obama, and a lady basically brought up in an audience he was addressing, she had the mic, and started talking about Obama as an African American or something, and McCain very graciously just took the mic from her and said, this is a great man. He's a great family man. I disagree with him on issues, but a great respect for him. And subsequently, in October of 2008, at the famous Catholic dinner at the St. Patrick's, where McCain was a speaker, he basically, Obama was there in the audience among a lot of New York big shots. McCain basically said how much he admired Obama and what he had done in getting so many people enthusiastic. And he ended with, he said, I can't wish you luck, but I do wish you well. This is a statesman. This is the imperfect man who does reach to the sky when he can to write things, to try and keep things together, to basically solicit us, the citizenry of this country, as looking to our better angels in terms of living our lives.
And he carried himself with class and dignity. There's a section of the American population that keeps perpetuating the falsehoods that he turned over information when he was in Vietnam, and he caused, and all these weird, wild rumors that these people put out. And this man rose above that all these years. All these years.
Well, proof positive of his lack of giving up information, he was tortured almost unto death before they found out that his old man was an admiral. And then they started treating him to try and keep him alive on a propaganda basis. But when he refused to leave the imprisonment because it wasn't his turn to leave as a prisoner of war, they started beating him again. So if he had given them something of substance, they weren't very grateful in the process. The thing about McCain is that sense of humor he had, which and that spirit You talk about spirit, Spirivikil. One of my kids' great grandmothers said that to him as he was lying on a bed somewhere when he was 3 months old. John McCain was beyond the obvious human spirit. He had a spirit, a quality that I think we should all aspire to. And John McCain for me was a great hero in life. Part of it is because I and my two brothers and my father served in the military. Also, but more importantly, that he put his country first, and he never stopped saying that and never stopped acting that the best he could. My hope that in his death, he will become a healer in his death with the commentary he left us in terms of our getting beyond our divisiveness. And there's no magic cure for this. It's just that John McCain and others stepping forward to try and help us to get beyond hurting first ourselves and secondly our country, because the divisiveness is hurting our country. I don't care what you believe in, short of hurting your country, and you certainly have a right to articulate it. But under the First Amendment, I guess you have the right to articulate it in any way you want to. But in terms of living life well, it's so much more rewarding to understand that there are different points of view and to acknowledge them. It's like it's a learning. It's like by our being in this divisiveness, oh, this is the only way, we show our ignorance because we are likening ourselves to God if we think we have all the answers, let alone any answer. So the accolades are many for John McCain, as I mentioned. Most people, and particularly his real allies, are very quick to point out his shortcomings and his acceptance of it. And they themselves are helping us because we don't want some hero that is made of a clay that can be broken. We want a hero that is solid, faults notwithstanding. So God bless John McCain and his wife and his family, and God bless the United States. And God bless all of us that we've had the blessing of someone like John McCain, as we've had Jack Kennedy, as we've had a Howard Baker, as we've had so many people who were in it for the public service. They were in it to serve. And that was McCain's whole mantra. He served, first in the military and then representing us in our country. So smooth sailing, John. I'm certain you're going to have a ball. This has been a time of passing of great people. Aretha Franklin has passed, a woman who brought so much to music and so much to the people in music, and such a fine lady. Yeah, I can remember at these inaugurations saying, and advanced in age, but still with that powerful, loving voice. What
amazed me about her is when she filled in for Pavarotti at that one show. He was sick, and she came out and she did the opera, hit it to a T, and had people in tears in the audience.
And what people also don't necessarily focus on with her is how she basically was the catalyst for bringing gospel music, which has been a mainstay to
her and Elvis.
A whole new group of people.
Her and Elvis, they turned their gospel roots in Elvis into rock and roll, and she turned it into blues and soul, and she became the queen, and just like he was the king.
That's right, and that's what 50 years on, 60 years on, what people view as music, just flat out, has its roots in what these people brought along.
Well said by both, and significant is for those who really paid attention to it, not only the music, but the history of the music. It would give folks an opportunity to learn about where a lot of different people in this country came from, and the music they brought to the world at large was from the church. And I'm not advocating the church. I'm just saying it gave people a better understanding of the history of some and many people. She was really, as she got older, she was someone really to behold, so to speak, in her tenacity, in her never backing away from her art, and never backing away from giving us the notes that we had come to love and treasure. What a face, what a presence when she'd be on the stage. She took it all. Moving on the stage, we go to Neil Simon, a great playwright who also has passed at age 91, who gave us a lot of joy in the theater and brought forward his tremendous talent. We've been gifted as Americans with so much. I really think in our hearts, let alone in our words, that gratitude should be more pervasive in our daily comings and going. And I think the reason it's not is because we don't understand, generally speaking, there is a lack of understanding of the history of this country with all its warts, and the history of the current world and world generally, and preceding that in terms of freedoms, politics, wars, peace, service, etc. Mike Barnacle, I just caught a piece of it. I think it was he on Morning Joe today, mentioned the fact that there is such, he finds a lack of history in terms of our people. And I certainly share that with him. In that regard, Jill was researching and brought up and
I wasn't researching. I accidentally stumbled on that, which was just terrifying.
That's okay. I think whatever way, the important thing is the information, and you can get it right on the internet. A study of how much time our children are spending on the internet, but more importantly, how little time they're spending in reading newspapers and in reading books. And it reminds me again of McCain, from people who traveled with him, and he traveled all over the world as a representative of this country. He always was reading books. A man of great accomplishment who always felt he had more to learn, since there are nuances in what's been written, which sometimes we can only get after we've read things several times. Obama also was a great reader. Reading has always, not always, reading is a backbone for learning, not just in getting information, but in going through the process of absorbing information, a process of not just absorbing it, but taking it within and being open to thinking about what the author is conveying. And I think this was always the bellwether of education, as I recall it years ago: reading, writing, and arithmetic. The reading we're slow on, if not, I'll be charitable, slow on. The writing, it's on a computer. The arithmetic, it's on a computer. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as we appreciate that our society has advanced to that. And in the process, we don't leave behind the wonderful experiences we have had in doing these courses and learning these things.
Well, we only have 2 minutes left, but what you read about that is that nobody, just because you can do it on a computer, when the power fails, you need people to be able to add, subtract, and multiply. And you know what? More and more and more and more and more, they can't.
Let me tell you a little story. When I started on Wall Street, in the bond business, we had a thing called the BASIS, BASIS book. It was all of these numbers showing what they would be if the yield was so-and-so. When I would figure out a dollar price of a trade, I would have to go to that book. It was rare I ever made a mistake. We then subsequently, as I was probably beyond doing the BASIS book in my career, the computer. And that's when some of the traders lost sight of the value of certain bonds, because when you're doing it in the old-fashioned way, the mind is clicking. When you do it on the computer, you've lost that. The bottom line is we have a lot of work to do, obviously, going forward. I want to tell you that I have been consciously trying to devote more of my efforts to less, sarcastic, negative comments. And I intend regarding the current administration, and I continue to do that. And I'll end with this. I found myself, and I do pray a lot, whatever that means. I've actually found myself deliberately starting to pray for Trump and, in turn, this nation, because this is a dangerous time. It's got more to do to security and to a man who, unfortunately, is having some problems dealing with reality. So I ask that you join me in a prayer for the president and for all the people in the government that we will survive whatever we have to survive, as John McCain says, pick up our socks and move forward. Right. God bless John McCain. God bless America. God bless you. And please keep your children close. Tell them the truth. Support them. Tell them you're there no matter what they have to tell you, and that they love you. You love them, rather. You have a great week. I'll talk to you next week. And the Yankees, apparently, Mr. Marshall, are on their way back.
We'll see.
We'll see.
After
God
last
love
night,
you.
maybe not.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Jim Lynch and Cover Your Assets here on Robin Hood Radio.